Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You may be seated. The Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, I first of all must apologize for a 5-minute late start, and I'm going to ask you, I'm apologizing to ask you to rise again shortly for the Chancellor to officially constitute the congregation of Plaatje University, and thereafter the Chancellor, Judge Majid, will officially welcome you to this installation of the second Vice-Chancellor and Principal, Professor Andrew Crouch. So once more, would you mind standing, please? I'll now request the Chancellor to take the podium. Thank you, Mr. Chancellor.
Good morning, everyone. By virtue of the authority vested in me as the Chancellor, I constitute this gathering as a lawful congregation of Plaatje University for the installation of Professor A.M. Crouch as the second Vice-Chancellor and Principal of the Plaatje University. You may sit down. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not sure if the Honourable Premier is here yet, but if he is, I'd like to acknowledge his presence. Also, Judge President Pule Tlaletsi of the Northern Cape Provincial Division of the High Court here in Kimberley, and also the Mayor, Mr. Kagisho Sonyoni. I'm not sure if they are here. I'd like to welcome all of you, all dignitaries, executive management of the university, Professor Baxton, and deans of faculties and members of the executive management and staff, Mr. Naidu, the registrar. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence here, in particular, of Professor Crouch's family, Lynette and the children. I understand some of them have traveled from Dubai. If I'm not mistaken, you're very welcome, and the grandchild Callum is here as well. He's the most important of all of them. That's why I'm mentioning him by name. All dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this auspicious occasion where we have the privilege today of installing the second Vice-Chancellor and Principal of this young, budding institution, already making a name for itself, not only here, but around the world. We welcome all of you, and we trust that you will enjoy this, this auspicious event today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor, for those words of welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now the moment that why all of us are here, and that is for the installation of the second Vice-Chancellor and Principal, Professor Crouch. You might wonder why I'm saying second. The first is also here. He's sitting right next to me, Professor Ballum, and all of you would know him. Professor Crouch, I would now invite you to come to the stage. He is sitting as a guest for the moment with his suit, and we're now asking him to please come, and please give a round of applause and usher him to the stage. Whilst he's making his way, I will also ask the Chancellor, Judge Majid, to rise, and Owen to pass the gown to formally install Professor Andrew Crouch as Vice-Chancellor and Principal. You can clap again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Chancellor, and Professor Crouch. You may now take your rightful place on stage as Vice-Chancellor and Principal. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you don't want to hear my voice all the time. There are sweeter voices amongst us, and in that regard, I will have a musical interlude, a song by a soloist called Dineo. Is Dineo here?
To dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, and to love pure and chaste from afar, to dare when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for that heavenly cause. And I'll know if I'll ever be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest. And the world will be better for this, that one man scorned and covered with scars still strove with his last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable, the unreachable, the unreachable sky. And yes, I will dream the impossible dream. And yes, that I'll reach the unreachable star. Thank you.
Wow, that was terrific. Another round of applause, please. I only wish I was a singer, but unfortunately, Dineo is great. Ladies and gentlemen, with the indulgence of the Chancellor, if you indulge me, Mr. Chancellor, to welcome some members who joined us after you did the official welcome, I want to welcome the Honourable Premier of the Northern Cape, Dr. Zamani Zaul. Welcome, sir. And I also want to welcome the former chairperson of the Plaatje University Council, who held the seat for 7 long years, the Honourable Judge Yvonne Mokoro. If I missed anybody and I spot you, I will, when I take the podium again, I will welcome you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on an occasion like this, we do have individuals who want to express their thanks and appreciation, their congratulations to the Vice-Chancellor on his installation. And we did invite a number of dignitaries, but due to the time of the year, some of them just could not make it due to other commitments. But we have received a recorded message from the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Dr. Bonginkosi Emmanuel Nzimande, commonly sometimes called Dr. Blade Nzimande. So would the technical team please play the recorded message of the Honourable Minister? I thank you.
Extend my warmest congratulations and that of my 2 departments to Professor Andrew Crouch on his appointment as the Vice-Chancellor of Plaatje University. I wish Professor Crouch well in the work that lies ahead. Professor Crouch has contributed immensely to the South African higher education sector, both as an academic with his extensive teaching and research work in electrochemistry and a distinguished university leader. To this effect, his impressive record in teaching and research contributions has been acknowledged through various awards that he has received both locally and internationally. Professor Crouch has extensive experience from various leadership roles. He has played within several universities in the country and most recently as Deputy Vice-Chancellor at Wits University. He was part of the management team that steered the university through the COVID-19 pandemic by ensuring the successful completion of the academic year. I'm particularly pleased that a leader of Professor Crouch's caliber is at the helm of one of our country's youngest universities. One of the key reasons for establishing this university was to widen higher education access to all South Africans and address the relatively low higher education participation rates. I'm confident that you and your team, Professor Crouch, will continue to build and solidify the university's footprint and produce our future leaders and innovators for the continent. In 2013, I published a government notice to establish Plaatje University as a comprehensive university. In 2014, the university took in its first enrollments of 124 students and has now grown to about 2,386 students. The university is expected to grow and eventually enroll 7,500 students when it operates at full capacity. Working with the university, my department has created a 10 to 15-year special development plan that is being implemented in phases, which includes the building and acquisition of building facilities to expand the university's infrastructure capacity to enable this planned growth. To strengthen the development and growth of the Plaatje University, my Department of Higher Education and Training continues to support the university through 2 earmarked funds, one for infrastructure development and the other for operational activities. To date, the department has allocated a total amount of 8 billion rands towards infrastructure and operational activities at this university. These funding mechanisms have been and will continue to be key in establishing a sustainable academic enterprise at the university. The role of Professor Crouch, together with his management team and council, will be to continue to build an institution with strong academic programs and a sustainable academic enterprise. The department will continue to support the university with infrastructure development, albeit within a difficult fiscal situation, and funding for operations until the university has reached self-sufficiency within the current funding framework. We indeed wish you all the best in your journey as the Vice-Chancellor of this young and promising university. The leadership of our universities have a critical role to play in developing and sustaining our universities for the broader society. I'm still firmly of the view at the heart of the transformation of our university system is the absolute necessity to transform the relations of knowledge production. Knowledge production in South Africa, despite progress made, still remains racialized, patriarchal, and elitist in its fundamental character. What therefore is the role of a new university like SPU in transforming relations of knowledge production in South Africa and beyond? That's an important question. Certainly, there are many other challenges that confront our universities. However, I believe that with your leadership and dedicated effort from all of us as a collective, no challenge will be insurmountable as we become resilient in our quest to be globally competitive, but with local relevance and impact. Professor Crouch, as you may know, universities are engaged in the economy in at least three major ways. Firstly, they are involved in the production and supply of skilled professionals and other knowledge workers to diverse public, private, and civil society markets, linking them into these labor markets in complex and dynamic ways. Secondly, universities are also engaged in the production of knowledge, basic and applied, mainly via research and development, often, though not always, leading to new technologies and their diffusion in society and the economy at local, district, regional, national, and even in some instances transnational scales. Thirdly, universities are also economic entities in their own right. They are represented in large-scale campus infrastructure and contributing in all sorts of ways, including in paying rates and local taxes, providing rentals, student accommodation, staff salaries and benefits, and consumables, amongst others, to their local economies in towns and cities across South Africa. Therefore, I would like to see Plaatje supporting the National Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Program as led by our President Cyril Ramaphosa, which is South Africa's program to forge a new inclusive economy in a new global reality. Plaatje can support the economic recovery plan's goals in a range of ways in line with its mandate. That would include, for example, providing short skills programs, facilitating workplace-based learning programs to respond to occupational shortages and skills gaps, contributing to addressing the shortages in skills as outlined in the critical skills list, strengthening entrepreneurship development programs, and facilitating the use of the National Pathway Management Network at the university. If this could be done, Plaatje's university's contribution to our economy will be noticeable. As I conclude once again, congratulations on your appointment, Professor Crouch, as the Vice-Chancellor of Plaatje University, and we wish you great success going forward. I thank you and congratulations once more.
Thank you for that round of applause, albeit remotely, but thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we also have other speakers who will come to the podium in the following order. It will be Mr. Mosiani, the SRC President, followed by Ms. Crouch, followed by Professor Baker. So I'll call to the podium the SRC President. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director, for giving me this opportunity. Good morning to everyone who is present here this morning at this momentous occasion. It is both an honor and a privilege to be here in addressing you all here today in my capacity as the SRC President for the term 2021-2022. By the way of introduction, My name is Solomon Musiani. In recognizing and extending my sincere greetings to all those present, I would like to acknowledge the presence of our very special guest today. Honorable Premier of Northern Cape, Honorable Mayor of the City of Kimberley, the Chancellor of Salt Lake University, Judge Stephen Majid, the Chairperson of the Council, Judge Violet Patswani, Vice-Chancellor and Principal of the University of Salt Lake University, Professor Andrew Crouch, members of Council and the senior management team, the Dean of Students, Student Affairs, Ms. Nicole Maurice, my fellow colleagues in Student Representative Council, former SRC presidents, members of academic procession, special guests in attendance, and those who are joining us virtually, workers and students, all protocol observed. I would like to extend our sincere appreciation on behalf of the SRC to the VC installation team for the meticulous thought and execution taken in the planning of this event. We thank you for the dedication taken throughout the many months of event planning in making this event possible. Today signifies a historic moment, not only for Salt Lake University, but for the nation at large. It is very rare that a child of the soil comes back and contributes so richly to the academic growth and development of the youth which reside in it, which you, Professor Crouch, have executed so excellently as part of your tenure as Vice-Chancellor and Principal of this university in the city of Kimberley. You have so delightfully revolutionized the university in adopting a more student-centered approach during a transverse time in grappling with a global pandemic that brought the economy to its knees. Salt Lake University is still very formative, yes, as the young university in the country. However, Vice-Chancellor, your core strategies are sure to propel the university to even greater heights. Your vision for a more digitally savvy university has seen your implemented strategies and policies bridge the digital divide experienced by students throughout the country in making ICT technology accessible to all students. Your echo for respect, accountability, and development has seen the university grow from strength to strength. And we envision that during your time here, your expert guidance will enhance the student life experience both academically and within the core curricular environment as we develop global leaders within the institution. In keeping my speech short and simple, the newly elected Student Representative Council and myself would like to share a few words of wisdom for our newly installed Vice-Chancellor. We all know being a Vice-Chancellor is not the easiest job in the world. It is a symphony of multiple movements characterized by idealized structural change, student development, transformation, and instilling a nurturing and caring environment for both staff and students alike. Though often isolated, there is a community of experts around you seated here today who will guide you and hold your hand along the way as you enter in this new path. We envision a good and sound professional relationship together in putting the interest of the students first, growing the university in becoming a leading global academic research intensive institution for higher education and training. Like the captain of a ship, the role of a Vice-Chancellor will be to set the course and steer the university on its journey forward. In building on our unique strength, the collaborative approach between your office and the Student Representative Council will also be the key to weathering the storms of uncertainty currently facing higher education. I'm sure under the steady guidance and leadership of our Vice-Chancellor, the university is sure to grow in leaps and bounds in achieving the goals and objectives as set through your expertise and vision for the institution. On behalf of the students at the University of Plaatje, we would like to congratulate you, Professor Andrew Crouch. We wish you all the best and success in your role. I thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, honored guests. I hope I find you all well and in good spirits. For those with whom I'm not acquainted, I'm Louise Crouch, the second eldest of Professor Crouch's children. I'm incredibly grateful to be able to have been invited to share I'm incredibly grateful to have been invited to share a congratulatory message on this very special day. It's quite a singular experience, seeing your parent, who you look up to, reach such a significant and extremely special milestone. And being myself a communicator by trade, I'm going to hope that I've chosen only the most sincere language to express my gratitude and happiness for this day. Many people don't know this, but my older sister, Andon, nourishes a rather long-held grudge against my parents, my father in particular, one that predates even her own birth. You see, once upon a time, in a faraway decade that was the 80s, my father was completing his doctorate at Concordia University in Montreal, Canada. During this time, my parents got married, and my mother moved to join him there. When they set foot back in South Africa, a few years later, my parents were 7 months pregnant with my older sister, thus beginning her lifelong mourning of the loss of potential Canadian citizenship and the effortless mastering of the French language, all because they couldn't wait just 2 more months. To be fair, I think she wasn't the only one who thought my parents mad for returning to South Africa, given all the turmoil our country faced at the time. But what many also don't know is that my parents' return in 1987 was brought about by a promise. You see, during his time studying in Canada, my father became acquainted with a South African expat who ended up funding his studies. He impressed upon my father his own hopes for South Africa's future, the importance of education in uplifting our people. And there was born within my father a lifelong determination to share all that he knew. And he then swore to return and to plow his skills back into our country. Since then, he has gone on to shape the minds and the futures of young South Africans, some of whom are either here today or watching via the live stream. But as children of educators, having a scientist as a father has also been an experience and has had its own unique impact on mine and my siblings' lives. My siblings and I have watched my father run a kitchen like you would a science laboratory, organized with great precision and considerable warning not to put glassware anywhere at the edge of any table, because were it a chemistry lab and were it to fall, it would have rather explosive consequences. He also helped us apply simple scientific principles to everyday life. The force of inertia, which has helped me get a lot of tomato sauce unstuck from the bottom of a bottle, or Newton's law that espouses that what goes up must come down. True of most emotional upheavals in our lives, except for the sunflower-like fringe that I sported as a young child. Even that thing defied even the strictest laws of gravity. It should also come as no surprise that to myself and my siblings, our own education was a central tenet of our upbringing. My father inspired us to work hard, to learn all we could, and grasp every opportunity. not only because of his understanding that education could help us attain academic or professional success, but because he always understood that education unlocks unquantifiable value to the human character and to the human spirit. He showed us that education and real learning would enable us to think deeply, to question everything, to constantly unravel and rebuild what we believe to be true, to have patience, respect, compassion for worldviews that might not be the same as ours, but to honor our beliefs just the same, and to never betray our conscience. He understood that education gives us the gift of humility, because there isn't a person alive or anyone who has ever or will ever live that will ever know everything there is to know. So the closest thing to it is to remain teachable. Out of all the valuable gifts my parents gave me, my education is one that I treasure most, not because of the places it has taken me or the career I've been able to forge as a result, but because it has made and continues to help me strive to be a better human being. It has deepened my own character, allowed for a safe but infinite environment for my own imagination to flourish, and the courage to live with a mind that is unbound and constantly curious. Papa, I think I speak on behalf of Anne and Lyndon when I say that as you grow older, we are perpetually surprised by how energized you remain, living with your authentic desire to make a real difference through education. And to see you come full circle to a point where you were able to do so in Kimberley, your home community, makes us more proud than I can say. We have in you a father who honors his promises, even 34 years on, who operates with deep integrity, has always lived by the courage of his own convictions, and has always been clear about who he is and what he stands for. I truly believe that out of all the privilege we have ever held, or will ever hold in our lives, having a lifelong teacher such as you is amongst the greatest. I would like to take this opportunity to dispense with the fallacy that pride is purely a parental concern, because we are all incredibly proud of you. And I certainly think that on a day like today, it is safe to say that Anlyn has forgiven you for returning home to South Africa as you did all those years ago. And so we'll end off by saying, congratulations, Papa. We wish you continued fulfillment and success in this incredible journey. And to the faculty, staff, and students at Plaatje University, I might be biased, but I do believe you are in good hands. Thank you.
Respected Chancellor, Judge Stephen Majid, Plaatje University congregation, colleagues, family, and friends, greetings and salutations from my house to yours as a former student, employee, colleague, and friend to Andrew Crouch. By the time I graduated from University of Cape Town with a BSc, majoring in ocean and atmospheric science in 1990, I had learned a few valuable lessons in my young life. One, that as a middle-class descendant, working to earn a living was a concurrent and obligatory part of studying. And two, as a recent graduate facing the challenges of my time, my options for postgraduate engagement in my chosen field of study became analogous to solving a quadratic equation by finding values for x, which are positive integers only. Quite hard. Hat in hand, I returned to my family after graduating. My father, Mr. Reginald Robertson, a skilled artisan himself, recommended technical training options as a practical solution to my dilemma. This brought me to Peninsula Technikon, where I enrolled for the National Diploma in Analytical Chemistry, and my professional journey with Professor Andrew Crouch began. As it turned out, I had already known of him from my high school days, but the pieces of that puzzle fell into place retrospectively. Lynette Crouch was my former high school music teacher at Belleville South Senior Secondary, and to us as young girls, Andrew was introduced as her mysterious fiancé who was studying in America. Of course, we totally mixed him up with Andre Crouch, the gospel singer. Miss Opperman, as we knew her then, was by far one of our favorite teachers, and with this mysterious bow in her closet, she came very close to being a high school celebrity in our books. So I started my in-service training as a research assistant to Andrew Crouch. Under his mentorship, I grew from assistant to research manager. I made the transition to BSc, majoring in chemistry, followed by full-time honors study and graduating with a master's degree in chemistry from the University of the Western Cape. During all this time, I continued to work with Andrew, observing and learning his unique brand of diplomacy, his capacity-building leadership style, his commitment to investing in people, his patience with people, his strategic approach to capacity building in research and research infrastructure, and his fervent pursuit of national and international research collaboration. He challenged us to see the bigger picture by thinking, His motto was, think bigger by thinking smaller, and this I have to explain. A typical conversation between Andrew and his students would start with a blank piece of paper and a pen, followed by a detailed unpacking of the fundamental principles of chemistry, linking it to the bigger objective at hand, and concluding with a strategic plan, a budget, and a philosophical grand finale. For in this approach to problem solving were embedded responsibility, accountability, ownership, and successful resolution. As postgraduate students, we knew better than to ask Andrew for money or make excuses for late deliverables, etc. Because out would come the blank paper and pen, and you would leave his office hours later feeling properly schooled. So I learned in time to come to a meeting prepared with a statement of progress, no matter how brief, then whip out a paper and pen of my own and challenge the master to a duel. Over the years, Andrew's steadfast character, his humble disposition, his love for his wife and family, unpretentious personality, and commitment to professionalism has endeared him to his colleagues and friends alike. Whether he held office as professor, head of department, director of research, dean of the faculty, deputy vice-chancellor, or indeed vice-chancellor, he also remained the all-round nice guy to all. In July of 2018, we had the opportunity to host an honorary symposium under the umbrella of the electrochemistry chapter of the South African Chemical Institute in recognition of his academic achievements, his leadership legacy, and patriotic capacity building efforts, which happened to coincide with the celebration of his 60th birthday. His prolific professional career spanning Concordia University in Montreal, Canada, University of the Western Cape, Peninsula Technikon, University of Stellenbosch, and WITS had produced second and third generation master's and PhD graduates who are today productive in South Africa and internationally. What a privilege to have celebrated with him in this way and to honor the legend that is Professor Andrew Crouch. Finally, Andrew, I bring congratulations and best wishes from my academic home, the Chemistry Department and the University of the Western Cape, Professor Emmanuel Ivuha and the colleagues and students from our Research Platform Center Lab, also the colleagues from Vice-Chancellor University in Paris, France, all your former students, as well as friends and family from Belleville and Kells River. Our very best wishes to you and your family for a profitable innings and sustained good health on this occasion of your installation as the second Vice-Chancellor here at Plaatje University in Kimberley, South Africa.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really awed. I didn't know some certain things about Professor Crouch, and now I know the in-depth issues about Professor Crouch and his work ethic, and he's called Papa, which is a wonderful thing to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give another round of applause to all the speakers. Thank you. After those wonderful messages, I think we can wrap up with a song. And Dineo, you are up next with your second musical item. Dineo.
I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be. Everybody's searching for a hero. People need someone to look up to. I've never found anyone to fulfill my needs. A lonely place to be, and so I learned to depend on me. I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow. If I fail, if I succeed, at least I lived as I believe. No matter what they take from me, they can't take away my dignity. Because the greatest love of all is happening to me. I found the greatest love of all inside of me. The greatest love of all is easy to achieve. Learning to love yourself, it is the greatest love of all. I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be. I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow. love. If I fail, if I succeed, at least I live as I believe. No matter what they take from me, they can't take away my dignity, because the greatest love of all is happening to me. I found the greatest love of all inside of me. The greatest love of all is easy to achieve. Learning to love yourself, it is the greatest love of all. And if by chance the special place that you've been dreaming of leads you to a lonely place, find your strength in love. Thank you.
Thank you, Dineo. Thank you very, very much. That was wonderful and sweet music to the ear. Ladies and gentlemen, on that sweet note, the moment has arrived for the address by Professor Andrew Crouch, the Vice-Chancellor and Principal. We don't call it the State of the Nation address, we'll call it the State of the University address for the next few years. Professor Crouch, we invite you to the podium to deliver your address.
Thank you, Registrar. I think after those two musical interludes, I don't know whether I should cry, and I was, or whether I should just celebrate the joyfulness of the occasion. I think it will be the latter, but forgive me if I cry in between. I'd like to thank everyone that turned up here today for this installation event. I'd like to say hello to all of you. Dumelang, hello. I would like to recognize the presence of the Chancellor, Justice Stephen Majid, the Premier, Dr. Samani Sol, our new elected mayor, if I can just indicate, members of council. I believe the speaker of the Sol Plaatje municipality is also here. Judge Mogoro, Judge Pachwane in her absence, the Deputy Chair of Council, Ms. Jenny Glennie in her absence, Sol Plaatje municipality representatives that are here, honored guests, members of the senior management team, Senate members, members of the Institutional Forum, members of the SRC, my predecessor, Professor Ballum, family and friends, as well as those that are watching online, and including the Vice-Chancellors from other universities who indicated to me that they are not here due to the fact that most of the universities currently have either their council meetings or their Senate meetings. But I do recognize them. I'd also like to recognize the presence of Dr. Randall Carolison, the former chair of the Wits University Council when I was employed at Wits University. It's indeed an honor for me to address you today. Given the times that we live in, I was not sure whether I would ever be afforded the opportunity to have an installation. I at one stage thought, when it was postponed and postponed, that I will have my installation and my farewell at the same time. But be it as it may, the opportunity that this favorable health and safety conditions now present us, in fact, we must grab with both hands. But we must also be mindful that we should always be careful and alert. Put safety first, protect each other, and protect ourselves. I would therefore urge you to, at all times, exercise the utmost caution. I would also like to thank all the speakers before me, Chancellor, Minister Mnzimande, Louise, and Professor Baker. I said the other night at the farewell function of Judge Mokgoro that if people introduce you and they say things about you, you sometimes do not remember or you do not recognize that individual that they are talking about. So I don't know if you were talking about me, but I assume that it must have been about me because I am here. Now, I'd like to start my presentation here, my address, by going down memory lane a little bit. I want to reflect on my own upbringing in a place called Ronnesvlei, and I must get my direction right. I think it's in this direction. It's next to the airport. That's where I spent, is it that way? Okay. You see, I don't have my sense of direction. I spent my first 10 years of my life there. We were evicted from Ronnesvlei following a decision by the then government to declare that area a white suburb. This decision was made by no other person than by the name of Mr. P.W. Botha, who was then Minister of Community Development in 1965. And his excuse was he was going to build 1,800 homes there for white families. So you evict one group to be able to accommodate another. We had to clear the land by 1968. And my father at that time was 50 years old. He had a wife, a young family of 9, and he had to start from scratch. He was not alone. There were 85 other families who were subsistence farmers on leased landholdings. They were in the same boat. This was the order of the day during that time. Many families who were affected during the periods 1958 to 1970, and most of them had to start their lives from scratch. Some never recovered from this displacement. In Kimberley, you see the scars of people who have been moved to places like Colville, Homestead Extension, a suburb called Tipperary or Tips Extension, Galeshewe and Mobile Park, just to name a few. The effect of these movements have affected so many people, left so many scars, changed so many lives, and affected the fabric of society. The decision to displace the families of Ronald's Flay had a lasting impact on my life, even today. As a 10-year-old, I decided that I will do something that nobody will ever take away from me. For me, education was the key which opened so many doors for me. I sometimes stared into the night sky of the Northern Cape, as I always do, the stars of the Northern Cape. And I dreamed that one day we would be able to make our own decisions about our futures. Today, I'm standing in front of you, confident that I am partly living that dream. The dream I'm, however, recognizing that I could not do this alone. The people who are congregating here today, those physically present and those who are virtually connected, have had a great part in my achievement. I thank my wife and children, my family, my friends, for their selfless support. To my family and the many months that they had to struggle alone whilst I was pursuing the life of an academic. You've heard from Priscilla that I tried to do justice to the term called being an academic and a supervisor, and later as a university administration and leader. I thank my family for the times that they had to endure that alone. To my wife, Lynette, in particular, she has been a pillar of strength then and now. I would publicly want to recognize her role in my success as an academic and as a university leader and manager. My children, all of them, have been a source of inspiration to me. The independence, maturity, and ability to stand their ground is testimony to me that we did not do such a bad job. I don't think we did such a bad job. These days, they are more our friends, and we ask them for advice too, because they are the new generation, and we have to also listen to them from time to time. I dedicate this achievement to my father, my mother, and my family, in part for their support, but for believing in me, for believing that even if you are born from a background of the dusty streets of Ronaldsvlei, or a small holding called Ronaldsvlei, or you're from the streets of Homestead, you could achieve success. I'm particularly indebted to my teachers and schools I attended, Ronaldsvlei Primary, Beacon Primary, William Prescott High. Throughout my schooling, I was blessed to have had dedicated teachers, both at primary and at secondary school. The other day, in fact it was in this week, my primary school principal at Beacon Primary phoned me, Mr. Wentworth. He's now 90 years old. He phoned me to congratulate me. My high school teachers, like Mr. Mkanda, Ms. Lewis, and Mr. Geduld, who is sitting right there, thank you. Mr. Robbie Burgess, our principal at the time, and several of my classmates at the time. I also wish to acknowledge the support and assistance of several individuals and organizations who've assisted with my development. The Peninsula Technikon, as an organization in particular, Dr. Franklin Son, Professor Brian Figaci, and Dr. Dwight Trichard, and Professor Jean Trichard, who's sitting right over there. Dr. Trichard and his wife were the two individuals who arranged for myself and my colleague, Dr. Miller, who's sitting in front here, to, in fact, go to Canada. Thank you, Dwight and Jean. Also the assistance of the ex-South African from Vicksburg in the Free State, Mr. John Everett in Canada, who assisted me financially when I ran out of money and funds to study in Canada. I tried to contact his family, but I was unsuccessful. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank my supervisor in Canada, Professor Cooper Langford. He's now deceased, but I think without his guidance and assistance, I would not have been the academic or supervisor that I've become. I also thank a special word of thanks to Dr. Rani Yanga. If she is virtually logged in, I believe herself and her husband, Dr. Charlie Burks, are live from Canada, for their understanding and unwavering support during my time in Canada, and I'm sure that Andre will also appreciate that. To the numerous students I've taught and supervised over the years, and Priscilla, I don't know how to count them. There are several hundred honors, 35 plus masters, 15 PhDs, 6 postdocs. Some of them are here, some of them are virtual. I've come to learn something from each and every one of you. So just as you had a learning experience, it was always a learning experience for me. And I'm still learning. And I'm still so young. I would also like to thank my collaborators that I've had over the years, particularly the ones where I served sabbaticals. Professor David Williams in Cardiff University, he's unfortunately also deceased. Professor Jim Jorgensen from the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill in the US. Professor Patrick Sandra from Ghent University in Belgium, with whom I spent numerous sabbaticals, time, collaboration, and fellowships. They have added greatly to my international footprint and my academic career. To my colleagues at Peninsula Technikon, now Cape Peninsula University of Technology, the University of the Western Cape, Stellenbosch University, and most recently, Wits University, thank you also for your contributions. I cannot say that we have always had just academic discussions. They were always robust discussions, but I think it's all contributed to who I am today. So my journey throughout my academic career, the opportunities presented to me at all the places that I've mentioned, all of those things I have taken as opportunities to develop. All along the way, there were also failures, and I'll be the first to recognize those failures. But these should be seen as learning opportunities. So I don't see a failure as a failure, but as a learning opportunity. Mr. Booker T. Washington, a well-known American civil rights leader, said in his autobiography called Up from Slavery, and I quote, he said, "I've learned that success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life, as by the obstacles which he had overcome while trying to succeed." I can associate with this, since my journey to this point was marked by many stops along the way, some intended, some by design, others just by consequences. Booker T. Washington was, like myself, also interested in the development of young people. His greatest achievement was to establish a school for colored youth in America. Throughout this school, or through this school, many young people were given an opportunity to make their dreams come true. And this school is still standing today. He lived in the period 1890 to 1950. He was, like me, also interested in youth development and making the dreams of young people come true. For them to dream the impossible dream, as we've heard, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far. Education has been what brought me to where I am today, with the help of others, of course. And it is through education that I would like to create hope, create peace, create opportunities, and make dreams come true, no matter how far those dreams might be. Thank you. So, Chancellor, I still have an hour to go. So I've now returned to Kimberley, and it was therefore almost as if my path was determined for me when I got a call in December 2019 that I was appointed as a Vice-Chancellor of Plaatje University. On the one hand, I felt like the proverbial Kana. I don't know if you all know Kana in the play, well-known play by Adam Small, Kana Heiko Heistu. In this play, Kana was wrestling with his own identity when he returned home, after having left his community to go and get educated. His poor mother, Makit, who raised him, she actually adopted him and raised him, was always hoping that he would return home to integrate back into the family. But unfortunately, Kana could only come home for her funeral. He could not fit into an environment that he left behind before he got educated. I know that my own mother, Louisa, my daughter's got her name, or Anfeni as she was known, like Makit in Kana Heiko Heistu, secretly wished that I should also come back home, to integrate back into the family. I can tell her now, wherever she is, I know that her prayers have now been answered. I am back. But like Kana, in Kana Heiko Heistu, I was also wondering whether I would fit into this community that I left so long ago. Unlike Kana, however, I have realized that my past and my future is linked to this community, that the dust of the Northern Cape is forever stuck in my lungs, and therefore I cannot leave this region, I cannot leave this country. And Lynn, that is why we returned. I'm now in Kimberley for 1 year and 8 months. The conditions I left behind 40 to 45 years ago have not drastically changed since I left. On the contrary, it seems that things have worsened. Like in the time of Kana, the conditions of poverty and inequality are persisting. There is limited opportunities for youth due to the slow or no economic growth and low education levels. Social challenges brought about by this low economic growth are persisting. That is why I think the decision to create a university in the Northern Cape was a wise one. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Thank you to colleagues who are sitting in the room today who was part of that decision. This social justice project, which started 8 years ago or before that, to address the plight of the peoples of the Northern Cape, to have their own university, has become a reality. But the university, by its very nature, is universal. So it's not just our university, it is a university for the people. And so Plaatje, named after one of the sons of the Northern Cape, although we know he was born, Saul Plaatje was born in Boshoff, but we will claim him nonetheless as one of the people of the Northern Cape. This university is not different. It should live up to the expectations of the people of Kimberley and of the Northern Cape. But the question is, have the citizens of Kimberley, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Speaker, have the citizens of Kimberley and the Northern Cape come to terms with the fact that it now has a university and it can join the many towns and cities in South Africa and abroad in claiming university status? Is it not hanging on for dear life still now to that mining town status? I urge you tonight or today to address that question. So the question of the notion of a university and what it means for the city and the province and this country should be addressed. The integration of Kimberley into the social, cultural, and economic fabric of Kimberley as a university and a town remains a crucial driver for growing intellectual, cultural, and physical interconnectedness of the university to the evolving city. That is why I signed a town and gown agreement with the mayor. And this town and gown agreement means that there is a commitment between the municipality and the city to work together for the peoples of this city and for this province and for this country. But prior to Kimberley becoming a city, this region had a rich history, inhabited by San and Korana. Their presence is still visible in the rock art, and I'm a great supporter of rock art. The rock art of the region in Wildebeest, Kuil, Driekops Island, and in other places near Kuruman. And to a certain extent, in the dance of the reel, which you will see later today. When the Griqua moved into this region, followed by white settlers, the better armed group obviously won. So this region was always earmarked by resistance and by strife. Even when diamonds was discovered and Kimberley was formed as a city following colonial conquests, the region seemed to always have been involved in some war or another. Diamonds transformed the landscape and cultural diversity of this growing city. More and more people moved in to the city as it presented the possibility of instant wealth. We of course know that not everybody became wealthy, but the cultural mix of European, Indian, African, and colored descended on this Kimberley. In later years, this integration had to be untangled by this Group Areas Act. And I've already pointed out earlier what this impact of disentanglement had on my own life. I was, however, not alone. The acts involving the relocations of the inhabitants of Malay Camp, Ronaldsvlei, Beaconsfield, and others, which then resulted in the Colvilles, the Floors, the Homevales, the Homevale extensions, Galeshues, and others, are testimony to the success of this Group Areas Act. We now have a golden opportunity through this university to mend these ills of the past. And this opportunity should not be wasted. We are soon to purchase the Oppenheimer Memorial Gardens. When I say we, not me, I don't have that kind of money, but we as a university. The Oppenheimer Gardens was the erstwhile site of Malay Camp, and we hope to turn this space into an iconic open public space with our great hall complex of the university erected there. This past Saturday, that was last week, I announced the winners of the architectural competition whose design we will use for the Great Hall Complex on the Oppenheimer Gardens. And through this project, we hope that the presence of the university on this historic site will bring more hope to the descendants of the peoples of Malay Camp, that the vibrancy which once existed in the city center will be brought back, that in the words of Mr. Solly Hunter, also one of my ex-teachers at William Prescott, and I quote, he says, "I remember the people as a single community, not as a composition of various races," close quote. Let the establishment of this university therefore be a reminder of the past struggles of this region, but let it also be an inspiration for our future. The only wars that we must now fight, or battles, must be the intellectual wars and not the physical wars. So I'm now asked to lead this university. And leading a university and setting a strategic course in these troubled times of climate change, poverty and inequality, social tsunamis, and wave after wave of epidemics is a daunting task. Leading a university and setting a strategic course is a daunting task anywhere in the world, even in ideal times. With multiple and complex challenges that face higher education institutions as we enter the third decade of the 21st century, compounded by the several parallel challenges that face this world, it becomes even more daunting. It is even more complex if one has to lead a university that is new and operates in a developmental context characterized by extremely high levels of poverty and inequality, as is the case in South Africa. So charting a strategic course capable of contributing to the policy expectations of this knowledge-based development for the country, while at the same time navigating the tensions that emerge in the course of pursuing this, poses a significant challenge. There's always pressure from above, from the sides, from below. And impacts of these pressures are exaggerated by the limited resources we have available to actually do this. Now, during the first 5 years of Saul Plaatje University's existence, in many ways, the first 5 years provided the opportunities to grapple with these dilemmas. The dilemmas that within the context of poverty and inequality, we have to run this university. The first generation strategy from 2015 to 2019 recognized these limitations. The limitations of a very short period of 5 years, but during that time, it was laying down and embedding the genetic markers and codes capable of defining the university's identity and positioning. And the Chancellor already said in his opening address, it's a young university, but it is already gaining some significance. The broad positioning points for this university should be the site of learning, research, and culture, an engaged social participant, a knowledge economy leader. But more importantly, it must be an innovative 21st century institution capable of addressing the needs of society. Needs, as I've said earlier, that are framed and characterized by various external factors which we have very, very little control over. The dominant motive that characterized the first 5 years under my predecessor's reign was growth, growth, and growth. Growth in student numbers, growth in staff numbers, and I have all the statistics here, but in the interest of time, I'm not going to quote them. Suffice to say that the university started with about 124 students, and currently we are now at 2,784. It started off with, I think, 33 staff. Professor Ballum always reminds me that himself and another staff member were the only 2 staff members on the first day. Is that correct, Eunice? 1 only. Okay, so it started with year 1, and we are now at 590 staff members. We have also, at the recent graduation ceremony, graduated our 1,000th graduate. So, thank you very much, Prof. Ballum, for setting the basis and the foundation for that growth. The second cycle of the university's growth, and my role in it, is to continue along the same path, but be more nuanced, because the scale at which the challenges that we will confront as a university will only grow. Will grow in scope and complexity as the institution embarks on this next cycle of growth and complexity. There are a few of these challenges that I'd just like to mention. I mentioned slow economic growth. There's funding for the higher education sector, or should I say underfunding. Depends on which side of the camp you are. There's increased pressure on funding from students. NSFAS and the previous administrator of NSFAS is in the room, so he won't be able to give us the detail on that. Rapid technological changes that we've seen, particularly in the last 18 months. The COVID-19 pandemic that we are currently in, and I believe that there is a fourth wave on the way. Very soon we are going to start talking not of waves, but oceanographic occurrences. The outbreak of this COVID-19 pandemic changed higher education worldwide, and it catapulted us into a period of uncertainty. It has, however, allowed institutions like Plaatje University to fast-track some of its key strategic projects, such as its digitalization project. As a response to this pandemic last year and this year, we had to fast-track our move towards online teaching and learning. We have been able to socialize this digitalization project by placing the emphasis on digital tools, and this has now become a natural part of our daily activities of every user. We also had to work in the areas of staff development, student development, tutorships, quality assurance, assessment, and module evaluation. So, on the whole, for the last year and a half or so, we have done reasonably well. And I'd like to thank my colleagues on the stage for their contribution, and those that are sitting in the audience and also listening in. For those of you who have worked tirelessly to make this happen, I thank you. We have shifted our focus now towards digitalization and e-learning earlier than what we anticipated. And this process would have taken much, much longer if it wasn't for this crisis. So I mention this now because I believe that apart from digitalization, the university has other strategies which we'll have to roll out over the next couple of years. And I'm not going to bore you with a lot of details. On your program, you will see the values, mission, and goals of the university at the back of that. The mission is to become an institution of higher learning which is uniquely positioned to produce graduates that are competent and capable of realizing the aspirations of our society. Produce new knowledge impacting on key challenges of our region, and be engaged with communities of discourse and communities of people in order to search our pathways to equitable development. These are simple but very, very powerful words. Words that we must live out, that we must enact, and that we must implement. So at the heart of this mission is the kind of graduate we aim to produce at this institution. This graduate should in turn shape the knowledge that we produce and share it through its different relationships and engagements with others. We take for granted that our graduates understand the foundation principles and ways of reasoning in their disciplines, are able to integrate and contest knowledge and ideas from other disciplines. In other words, be tolerant of other people's ideas. That in the world of work, our graduates are actively engaged in the progressive transformation of their professions and social environments. And in society, our graduates must have a broad understanding and commitment to principles of human rights, social justice, and global sustainability. These vision and missions that we espouse, as I said, should transpose into values. And I always say to our SRC, we can read these values, but the fundamental value for me is the value of respect. We do not have respect for each other. We can talk about academic freedom, we can talk about independent thinking, we can talk about academic citizenship and all the other things. For me, it starts with mutual respect. If we do not have that, we do not have a start. So these fundamental values and fundamental choices must be embedded in the strategy which we will cover for the next 5 years. And this strategy lives itself out in the kind of university that we would like to produce and transpose, and imagine the university, the typical South African university, 50 years from now. I don't think any of us can imagine that. One wonders whether Saul Plaatje University and these other newly established universities in South Africa are the ideal vehicles for us to build modern, innovative 21st century institutions. But when we do this, there are a few critical questions we must ask ourselves. We must ask ourselves, what should this university of the 21st century look like? Who should this university serve? How should we teach and learn in this university of the 21st century? And what should our structures, whether it be our governance, our academic, and other structures be? Now, I don't have the answers, but neither does any of the other vice-chancellors in the sector, because these are vexing questions which the rest of the world is currently wrestling with. What I do know, ladies and gentlemen, is that to a certain extent, Saul Plaatje University, as a new university, are already grappling with all of these in the face of our changing circumstances and the opportunities that are presented to us. So when I was appointed here at Saul Plaatje University, I presented the council with a 5-point plan. And I have a detail of the 5-point plan here, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to mention. I presented the council with the idea of an innovative university embedded in the community. I presented the council with the idea of humanizing teaching, learning, and research at a university like SPU. Humanizing in terms of its curricula, the research, and its governance. I presented council with the idea of how we can manage talent within this institution, both from the point of view of staff and students. I reminded council of the centrality of students and student life, and talked about a framework for student support. And lastly, I presented the council with the concept of the digital university as an enabler in the learning, teaching, and generation projects. So in considering the above 5-point plan and how it fits into what was then an approved strategy of the university, I believe that those are the pointers of the arrow which will take this university forward in terms of it being a novel, innovative, entrepreneurial 21st century institution. Allow me to just expand on one aspect of that. That is the talent management. And I'm just going to talk about one project which we have already launched, which is the Talent Pipeline Project. This is not a new project, by no means. I have been involved in a similar project in my previous institution, but I thought it fitting that it would be a project which would greatly enhance the capacity within the Northern Cape in terms of building capacity amongst its youth. What is this project? This project involves us identifying youth at grades 10, 11, and 12 at schools, and bring them onto the university campus and building their capacity so that it can, in fact, give them a better chance of passing matric with a better pass. Now, why is this important? I believe that a good matric is like a key that unlocks and opens many, many doors for you. Because many rural learners in the Northern Cape and some other provinces are caught in the poverty trap after finalizing their basic education because they cannot find opportunities within the major economies of agriculture and mining or any other emerging economy. So a lot of talent therefore goes to waste because these learners, although talented, are precluded from going to university. So even with the introduction of free education, we find that there's a lot of talent that has been lost. And therefore, with the assistance of the Chancellor and the previous Chair of Council, Professor, well, she was a professor at one stage, but now Judge Mogoro, who has agreed to be the patron of this, this project, we have launched this project this year with 43 learners, and we will continue with that. So with those few words, I'm going to just try and indicate to you that as a university, we are growing. As a university, we would like to do a few things. We are growing in staff, we are growing in students, we are focusing on programs that's unique to this region, that is unique to this university, like data sciences, like heritage studies, focusing on writing in African languages, refocusing our education programs to see to the needs of these regions. We're also looking at new programs going forward, such as health sciences, and we have started the engagements with the local Department of Health for future rollout of nursing, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, and emergency medical care. Hopefully, we will also soon be introducing programs in environmental sciences and agri-sciences. On the research front, we have identified 7 breakthrough initiatives, and these breakthrough initiatives involve the establishment of various centers in data sciences, entrepreneurship, centers in writing for African languages. We have established our advancement division so that we can build out our partnerships with the public sector, the municipality, the Premier's office, the private sector, and others. And I'm working tirelessly to make sure that we build out that area in the university. We also have a number of plans, and I always say fortune favors those who are well prepared. And as Priscilla has told you, I always start with a blank page, start from the basics and the fundamentals, and work your way out to what I call the bigger picture. So we have the bigger picture in mind. And that bigger picture is captured in our enrollment plans, our teaching and learning plans, or as I say to my DVC colleague, our learning and teaching plan, because we must put learning before teaching, I believe. You must be able to learn to be taught, not taught and then learn. And our research plan, which has just been approved by Senate. We also have other plans like talent management, sustainability, and plans to turn this institution as the model institution for digital learning. One example of those plans that we will roll out is our digital university framework that we've signed with Microsoft, and it makes us the first university in the country to have had that partnership with Microsoft, giving us unfettered access to all the Microsoft suites. So, Registrar, I won't say in closing and finally and then, but really it's now the end almost of my presentation. I would like to close off by saying that all of us here today, gathered, my colleagues on the stage, those that are listening in, we have one common goal. And that common goal is to ensure that the young people who enter this university or universities across the country should be successful in their endeavors. I would like to end with the story of a certain Mr. Sylvester Malawa. Some of you are smiling because you know Mr. Sylvester Malawa. He's an XRC member, and I have the privilege to interact with him quite a lot. But I picked up something on social media the other day. Mr. Malawa came from a small village, which is part of Kuruman. And he finished matric in 2016, but because he didn't have money, he could not come to university. So he took a gap year. 2017, he was just at home. And he writes very eloquently in his post, and I can refer you to that post, because he said that he didn't have money in 2017. So in 2018, he decided that he's just going to try and get some money. He got 200 Rand, and he got onto a taxi, and he came to Kimberley. When he arrived here, he had 50 Rand left. So he didn't have any place to stay, so he slept at the police station, because he read somewhere that that is the safest place to go and sleep. He was given an opportunity to register at Plaatje University. And today, he is a BSc Data Sciences graduate. He is currently busy with his honors, and hopefully he will graduate at the end of this year, or when the next graduation is happening. Now, this story touched me, ladies and gentlemen, because universities like Plaatje University made it possible for Sylvester to go and create hope for his family. There are many Sylvesters. So, the dreams with which they enter university should be realized. This would speak to creating hope through education and eventually freedom. So dreams can become possible. We've heard that. To dream the impossible dream. Dreams can become possible, but only if you work on making it possible. Nobody will give it to you on a silver platter. I would like to thank the council of the university for entrusting me with this role to be the second Vice-Chancellor of Plaatje University. I've inherited stable governance, thank you, Eunice, stable management, and we have had 2 cycles of unqualified audits. I can certainly claim responsibility with the CFO for the second one, but you were responsible for the first one. And I believe that I have committed to clean governance and ethical governance, and will continue for this university to have clean audits. I thank you, and I thank the Almighty for this opportunity. To my friends who came from afar, thank you very much. I'm honored. Kalibocha, dankie. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Professor Crouch, for your address. I did see many a tear in the audience, I think because he spoke from the heart. And that's important, that he spoke from the heart and he shared his journey, starting off in Ronaldsflay and ending up as the Vice-Chancellor of this prestige institution. I always say to staff and students, it's not where you start in life, it's where you end in life. So always keep that message. Amongst all of you sitting here, many of you had a start, not zero, zero is a number, I think it was below zero. But today, what you have achieved through hard work, dedication, diligence, well done. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Crouch. By the way, Professor Crouch quoted Sylvester Malawa. There are many Sylvester Malawas that have been through this university who had nothing, and today they graduated and are in professions. So this university, through the first Vice-Chancellor, has played a unique role. It really looked at students from poverty-stricken area, very poor students indeed. And Sylvester Malawa was one of the few students that served 2 terms as a member of the SRC. So he even got into leadership. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this installation program, and we've been a good pilot. We completed ahead of schedule. You know, pilots like to say we're landing ahead of schedule. Very seldom they say we're landing late. They always pride themselves by saying we're ahead of schedule. And we are ahead of schedule. So I just want to make a few announcements to you. The first one is that once the procession leaves the hall, you have about an hour to network, take photos, go to the courtyard on the left. The hosts, the ushers will guide you. There's some pre-lunch, what do you call that, Kashni? I can't pronounce that word, but it's something about food. It's something about food. Canapes, I think it is. And ladies and gentlemen, please come back to your seats in an hour's time from now. That's around about 1:45 or 1 o'clock, and you'll be served with lunch. It's now my pleasure to call the Chancellor to finally dissolve this congregation of Salt Lake University. Chancellor, would you do the honors? And please rise.
Thank you. By virtue of the authority vested in me, I now dissolve this congregation of the Salt Lake University.